Hello, everyone. Now I feel really stupid of volunteering to hold my speech after you. Yeah, anyway, I have to go through this. My name is Julia Ehrt. I'm the Executive Director at ILGA World. And first, I want to recognize that we are on the ancestral land of the Rika, the Kamisa, and the Khoisan, who are the original inhabitants of the lands we are holding our conference today. I want to recognize the experience and devastation that colonialism and apartheid have brought to this country. And I want to remind all of us about the legacy and the unmet responsibility for reconciliation many global North countries and people hold in regard to colonialism in the world. I want to recognize that many of us are on a journey of unlearning patterns of racism and misogyny, a journey that is necessary and a journey that is by no means finished, probably never will be. So earlier this week, I've met with the Pavement Special Collective, who's been mentioned a couple of times today, an initiative of queer groups and organizations in Cape Town. Some have said the Pavement Special wanted to protest against our conference. Some say they wanted to make us aware of their disagreements and grievances. Some say they wanted to hold ILGA World to account. And some say they wanted to support us in how we as an international organization, yes, movement driven, but as an international organization, show up in the local and national context with this conference. I don't think it matters what of that is true. Probably all of these perceptions are true to some extent. What matters is that when I met with them, I expected a somehow confrontational meeting 2 weeks ago. But what I've experienced was an atmosphere of warmth, an atmosphere of respect with a commitment to listening to each other without prejudice and preconceptions. I experienced an atmosphere in which we could sit with our difference, except that we might not agree how we approach things in full, but still respect each other in an acknowledgement that we are fighting maybe not for the exact same thing, but for a similar cause. So why am I sharing this with you? I'm sharing this with you because I believe our LGBTI movements are notoriously bad with things like that. Our ability to sit with different in the movement is not well developed. We often have a tendency to hone in on our disagreements, hone in on what divides us, instead of elevating the goals we have in common. And that is a problem, my dear friends. Why? Well, let's have a look at our opponents. Anti-rights and anti-gender actors, as different as they often are, they have very often only one thing in common: to be opposed to gender equality, to be opposed to the right of abortion, to be opposed to SOGS issues. And that's enough for them to come together with force. You know, Christians and Muslims have been fighting each other for centuries in this world. Both are against the right to abortion, and that is sometimes enough for them to come together to oppose that right. Nationalist movements, who have our nation's first attitude, they come together, even cooperate internationally to fight LGBTI rights. I think that's striking. One thing in common, and they come together to fight their common enemy, which is us. And our dear, beautiful, diverse LGBTI movements, we are very much different. We have to agree on literally anything and everything. We have to be aligned on our values, approaches, and goals before we even can consider to work with each other. It's like, well, we have to add the Q to LGBTI to make it inclusive. Well, but no, because intersex people very often do not perceive themselves as queer or identify as queer. And does the T really include non-binary persons, or is it invisibilizing them? How do we do justice to indigenous representations of identity that are labeled as LGBTIQ in the global north? And the challenges and list goes on. And I do not want to be dismissive about this, because things like that are important, because they speak to and seek to rectify historic and present exclusions and discriminations that our own movement have been producing. They aggravate the experience of many of members of our own communities of being excluded. And they're important in order for us, like being inclusive and embracing our own diversities are paramount in order to deliver on our shared vision for equality. But at the same time, it seems we're so absorbed with calling each other out, so absorbed with policing ourselves to do the right thing, say the right thing, be overly correct and precise that we sometimes forget where the actual enemy is sitting. Sometimes it seems we are friends, but we act like enemies. We need to get better in calling us in, meet each other with gratitude, with generosity towards each other. And yes, sometimes that is painful, because it should not be the duty of a trans person to, for the 1,000th times in their lives, call out transphobia. It should not be the duty of a person of color to explain racism to a white person for the millionth time. And it should not be the duty of a woman to expose misogyny. But then, who else is going to do that? Who else is going to do that? And isn't it that distinguishes us activists from the non-activists? So I call on us to meet each other with generosity, to make an effort to calling more often in than out. I call on all of us to learn and get better to accepting our differences for the greater common good and the goal of equality. And I'm convinced that this will lead to social change. I'm convinced that these are conditions that enable us to truly collaborate, to truly come together under a shared vision for our queer futures. So we have to come together in unity to rise above discrimination, to rise above violence, inequality, and ill treatment. And that's why we say today, Kwa Umoja, we rise. Kwa Umoja, in unity, we rise. Thank you.